friend, and welcome to Betta Days. If this is your first time, I'm so happy to see you. And if you've been here before, thank you for joining me again today. I will be answering some of the most commonly asked betta fish questions. Let's just go ahead and get right into it because I have quite a few. Number one, why are betta fish sold in cups? This mainly just has to do with the amount of space that a pet store has. Pet stores always have limited space. Usually the bettas don't even have a full aisle. They're usually on an end cap, so if pet stores had a bunch of tanks set up, they would have to have a whole aisle. Now, if you have any local pet stores, maybe some family-owned ones, you will often find that they have a larger section for the bettas, and they do have larger containers or are even in their own smaller filtered tanks in the wall. If you have a place like this, I always recommend buying from them just because it is supporting someone who takes better care of their bettas. Number two, should I get one or two bettas? If you're a beginner, I always recommend to start with one because when you start with one later down the road, you usually end up getting two or three or four. Always start with one, that way you can learn and grow, and then after you're ready, feel free to go ahead and get a second one. This question could also be asking whether or not you can house two bettas together in the same tank, and the answer to that is absolutely not, especially the males. Male and female, you can't keep them together either for a long amount of time, and you would only do it for a short amount of time if you were wanting to breed them. But many people think that it's just okay to take two male bettas and put them in the same tank. When in an enclosed and confined space, even if they are in a tank that is 10 gallons, they cannot have their own territory. It's just too small a space for the two of them, so they will fight. And they will most likely fight to the death. They can live together peacefully in the wild because their natural habitat will stretch for miles, something your tank never would be able to do. So if two male bettas had a small fight, then they could go their separate ways. In a tank, they aren't able to do that. Do bettas get excited to see you? I know that both my boys do. Now, sometimes it depends on the betta, but after you've had them for a while, bettas are so smart that most of them do get to where they will recognize you and they will swim up to their tank very excitedly. 9 times out of 10, you will get one that will be very excited to see you, especially when he realizes that you usually mean feeding time. How do you tell if a betta likes you? Well, it's pretty straightforward. If your betta isn't hiding all the time and isn't avoiding you and is swimming up to the front of the glass of your tank, especially anytime you walk up to it, then your betta likes you. Now, sometimes when you get one at first, they will be shy because they have to adapt to the tank and everything. Don't take this immediately as a sign that they don't like you. Sometimes they just need to get used to their tank. Can guppies live with bettas? Sometimes they can, but I never recommend that someone keep guppies with the betta because guppies have big, beautiful flowing fins, and while they are a smaller fish, they're not as large as bettas. Bettas will still see those flashy fins and colors, and they will most often attack them. And because guppies have those fancy frilly fins, they cannot swim quickly enough to escape. So usually they end up being dinner or severely injured. How long do bettas live? Typically, if they are kept in a 5-gallon tank with a heater and filtration and regular water changes and all of the above, bettas can live up to 2 to 4 years. And I have heard some people say that their bettas lived a long time. I seem to recall someone saying their betta lived 8 to 9 years or something, so really you never know. Sometimes things happen and they get sick and then they pass, and sometimes you will bring one home from the pet store and they were already sick and they may pass a week or so after you get them. So if something like this happens, don't think that you are a bad fish keeper. Far from it. A lot of times they are stressed and sick just from the pet store. But most of my bettas have lived about 4 years each. Why do betta fish change color? Simply put, if your betta is happy, they will completely change color. Because most bettas in pet stores are unhappy, their colors will be more faded. Even though they may look vibrant in the pet store, once you put them in your tank, give it about a month or so and you will notice an insane difference as long as they are happy. Your betta may not even look like the same fish. Every betta fish I've gotten after a few months just did not even look like the same fish. They put on new colors, new patterns. It was totally crazy to see, but honestly the transformation is one of my favorite parts. Why is my betta hiding? Well, there are a few different reasons, but in my experience, if your Betta fish is hiding, it could be because you just brought him home and he's a little bit stressed, just trying to get used to the new tank. Maybe people still scare him a little bit. I know Alexander still doesn't like when you put the finger up to the glass. He does actually flare at it and back up into the back of the tank. However, sometimes you'll just get a fish that's shy and you just need to spend a little time sitting next to them until they get used to you. So usually if they are hiding a lot, it's because they are just shy. Why is my Betta tank cloudy? There are a few reasons for this. Number one, if you just set up your tank and the water is cloudy, then you may have not rinsed your gravel well enough. If you haven't set up your tank yet, do not forget to rinse the gravel thoroughly. If you don't, your water will be so cloudy and it won't be safe for your Betta. And at that point, the only thing you can do is pour the water out and put some new water in. Or just pull all the gravel out if you haven't set everything else up and just rinse it. But always make sure you rinse your gravel. Secondly, it could be cloudy because you have a colony of rapidly growing beneficial bacteria. This usually happens if you do a 50 to 60% water change in your tank, especially if it's more drastic. Maybe you notice an ammonia spike or something like that. For about the first day after you do that, the tank water can get very cloudy, but don't worry, if that is the case, then it will clear up after a day or so, and it's just the beneficial bacteria rapidly colonizing. Why is my Betta fish staying at the top of the tank? If they're not floating on their side near the surface or showing signs of sickness or disease or perhaps swim bladder disease, most likely they're staying near the surface because they need more oxygen. If you don't have a filtration system like a sponge filter, or if you don't have oxygen regularly diffusing into the water and it's relatively still, a Betta isn't going to be able to get as much oxygen from the water and therefore will stay near the surface to gulp more. Bettas are going to go up for air anyway, but in a tank with less oxygen in the water, they are likely to hang out there more. If you have a good amount of oxygen getting into the water, most likely from your filter, or if you have an air stone in there and your Betta is still hanging out near the surface, try giving him some resting spots up there if you don't have any, maybe some floating plants that he can rest on, some leaf hammocks, a floating log, etc. A lot of times, Bettas just love to rest up near the surface. I know that both my boys do. I made a leaf hammock, a little leaf tunnel for William, and he's there 24/7. Can my Betta fish live in a bowl? Yes, your Betta can live in a bowl, but your Betta will not thrive in a bowl. There's a big difference between living and thriving. As long as a Betta is in water, they will live, even though it may be for a short amount of time. However, if you want your Betta to thrive and be really happy, don't keep them in a bowl. It's just a common myth that Bettas should live in bowls because they live in puddles. Bettas don't live in puddles unless it is the dry season, when a lot of their water will dry up and then they are forced to abide in small puddles of water. But for the most part, Bettas live in, while it is a shallow body of water, it will stretch for miles. So no, Bettas don't live in puddles all the time. I used to think that myself, and a lot of people truly believe that, and then they use that as kind of their logic. Well, I can keep my Betta in a bowl because they live in puddles in the wild. In my experience, Bettas have always done better in a tank, and even if you can't fully max it out, at least they will have the space for now. I hope I answered some of your questions, maybe some of the things that you were wondering about. If you have any more, feel free to put those in the comments. I would love to answer those for you. And don't forget that you can always reach out to me. I will put my email down below. If you have any questions, any recommendations, do not hesitate to shoot me a little email. And before you go, I just wanted to say Happy New Year, because I totally forgot that this video will be posted in January. I honestly can't believe 2023 is almost over, and is over at this point. I hope you and your Betta have a wonderful week, and I will see you in the next video.